After celebrating two memorable Big Bash champions, it's time to set the scene for another Big Bash summer. Australian superstar Meg Lanning joins us to preview the Big Bash drafts. This is The Surge. G'day everybody and welcome to a special edition of The Surge ahead of next week's drafts, both the BBL and WBBL. I'm Adam White and as I said, we're joined by cricket royalty. Meg Lanning is with us to look at both the BBL and the WBBL drafts next week. Meg, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Does it feel like cricket season?
Well, it's a little bit early. I certainly haven't dusted off the cobwebs off the bat, but it's exciting, I guess. We get to talk about cricket right in the midst of footy season, so it's nice to be able to talk about it and build some excitement for the season upcoming.
When you reflect back on your season with the Stars, what are the memories? Are they ones of frustration, of what might have been? How do you look back on last year?
Definitely frustration. I think we put together a pretty good list, to be fair. We had some really talented internationals and local players as well, and we just couldn't get going, unfortunately. And as happens in the Big Bash, I think you can get on a roll in a good way or in a bad way. Yeah. And we probably were on the wrong end of it and just couldn't quite get our season back on track. But the good thing is the season rolls around pretty quick and we get to have another crack at it this year.
Now, all of this show is about what the changes are going to be with the lists for next year, with obviously every team bringing in new players, and some are going to be retained from last year as well. You've got a new coach as well for the new season, Andy Christie. What do you think he'll bring to the group? Someone that's relatively well known by a lot of the girls down at Cricket Victoria.
Yeah, he is. He's been obviously with the Vic Women's program for the last couple of years as head coach and assistant before that. So he's got a lot of experience, I guess, in terms of women's cricket and how that sort of works. His first sort of foray into Big Bash coaching, but I think he'll be a nice addition for us. A different perspective, I guess, from what we've had, and some new fresh ideas, which is always a good thing. So yeah, I think we've got the makeup of a really good team with some really, really solid experienced players. So now it's just about bringing it all together, which hopefully we can do this year.
So do you feel you have to make significant change when you've got a team? It feels like chock full of really high quality players. A few things went differently last year. It might have been a totally different story. Or do you feel you need that fresh voice to try and revitalise things?
Oh, I think a fresh voice will be helpful. As I said, it's just a different perspective, and the talent's certainly there. That's not the issue. It's just about bringing that out, and I guess the top performers playing well consistently and sort of leading the way, and then bringing everybody else along with them. So I think that was one of the things from last year is that. The senior experienced players, myself, at the front of that, didn't have great seasons, and that makes it pretty difficult for your team to do well. So hopefully things turn around pretty quick.
As I said, this is all about the WBBL and the BBL. Sam Billings, he'll join us all the way from the UK, one of the stars of the Sydney Thunder, to go through things from not only his own perspective, the Thunder perspective, but also the BBL perspective, because it looks like there's going to be some new names that we know a lot about, but who haven't played in the BBL recently. So it looks like it's going to be an exciting draft just to see who those names are going to be. The BBL, the Big Bash for you, the WBBL Big Bash, what sort of impact has that had on your career when you look back on it? Because you've been part of almost an agent of change, really, for yourself and what you've gone through over the years.
Yeah, it's been.
That doesn't mean you're old, by the way.
I'm feeling it a little bit heading back to pre-season this year with some of the young kids coming through. But, I look back to the first couple of years of WBBL. The first year we played 2 games in one day. I remember we played the Brisbane Heat at Junction Oval twice in one day to kick off the season. So it's come a long way. And I think that the best thing is that it now creates a really nice platform for young girls coming through to see where they can get to, I guess. And, I know growing up, my hero was Ricky Ponting, but that's because, not only because he was a great player, but there really only was men's cricket on the TV and that was all you could see. Whereas now young girls can turn on the TV and watch their heroes and role models going about it to see what's possible. So that's been one of the biggest things for the WBBL is just really lifting that platform, I guess, and reaching, so many more people to let them know what's possible out there. So that's been a really cool thing to be a part of right from the start.
So you're talking before about how young girls have got heroes now. You're one of those heroes. How does that sit with you that that you've got a bit of pressure on yourself, I guess, to be that role model.
Yeah, it's something I've sort of had to get used to a little bit. But in some ways, it's a really cool thing to be able to have some sort of positive influence, I guess, on the next generation coming through. And always think about all the young girls that come and watch the games and want your autograph afterwards. And you can never really, I think you can underestimate the impact that can have on people. And sort of, it's something that I always love doing, I guess, is just taking that time to speak to people for coming out, and it does have a really big impact. I know as an Australian team, we always made sure after every game we went out there and did all that stuff, because we know that it has a really positive impact on people sort of moving forward and their experience. So it becomes something you actually enjoy doing because you see the joy on people's faces.
Yeah, and it's changed so quickly. It's exciting, obviously, for the sport. Okay, it is now time to do our preview of each draft for both the WBBL and also the BBL. But before we do that, let's relive the winning moments from BBL 14 and WBBL 10.
Clean strike by Hancock, but it will not matter because the Melbourne Renegades, after finishing last in WBBL 09, finished top of the table this year and can now celebrate being WBBL champions.
Okay, now is the time where we try and explain a very complicated thing and make it as easy for you as possible at home watching. So the Big Bash draft is on June 19, which is next Thursday, and fans in Australia can watch the draft on 7, Fox and Kayo from 4 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. Now, there are 4 rounds to each draft, and each club must pick a minimum of 3 players in each of the drafts, including using their pre-signed players as one of those draft picks. Now, from a BBL perspective, all clubs have announced their pre-signed overseas player, and in the WBBL, the Hurricanes are the only club, at least at this stage, not to announce their player. Now, clubs are allowed to use 1 retention pick per draft to keep a player from previous seasons if another team tries to select them. Now, we did have a lottery back in April, which determined the order. And Meg, you didn't sort of think that things fared too well for you from a Stars perspective. Didn't have enough balls in the barrel.
No, whatever the strategy is to work out the order, it didn't quite work this year. We ended up number 3. So anyway, we'll do our best with that pick.
I've got a feeling you would have chosen the same player anyway, probably.
Probably, yeah. Yes. But anyway, it'd be nice to have first choice like
That's
sixes,
right.
But anyway.
Exactly. So we'll get to exactly what everyone will do shortly. But as I said, the lottery back in April, and then since then the clubs have traded picks, but now the order is set for both the WBBL and BBL. So for more information on both drafts, both ahead of it and then also next week, next Thursday after it, if you want to work out which club or which players have gone to each club, the best thing to do is to go to the Big Bash Draft Hub on the Big Bash app. So if you haven't downloaded it, make sure you do it ahead of next Thursday. So looking at the order, and I know it's been up on the screen, so Brisbane, Adelaide, Melbourne, Perth, the Hurricanes, the Sixers, the Stars and the Thunder make up the order from a BBL point of view. And Meg, have a listen to some of these names. These are the pre-signings already sort of locked in. The strikers, Jamie Overton, no surprise there. Brisbane Heat. Colin Munro must have a better season than he had last year. Anyway, he's up. Chris Jordan, who's become such a versatile player for the Hurricanes, he is going back to the purple team. Tim Seifert, I guess he's the versatile player from the Renegades' point of view, both batting and also being that keeper option. Tom Curran goes back to the Stars. Finn Allen, who had a really slow start last year, and I'm going to actually ask you about that. Just to start the Major League Cricket season, he's gone and scored 151 with 19 sixes in his first game.
Yeah.
So he's doing pretty well for the Unicorns over in America. But you're talking from a team point of view when you lose momentum, how hard it is to get it back. When you have a slow start to a tournament, how hard is it to fight against the tide?
Yeah, it can be difficult because in some ways, when the games come around really quickly, it's a good thing when you're going well. But when they're not, it can sort of just all tumble into one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess T20 cricket is a good format in terms of generally, if you're not sure what to do, you go out there and take the game on, be more aggressive. And I think that tends to help batters sort of get their way out of a bit of a slump. I remember watching Finn Allen last year, and sometimes you just can't buy a run. And often you just need a little bit of luck to get yourself going. And then and that's why it's important when you are playing well to actually cash in and not sort of take that for granted, because the nature of the game is that there will be a patch where you're not quite going as well as you would like. So if you can cash in when you're going well, I think that's the key.
Rounding out those pre-signings, Sam Billings at the Thunder, who we will speak to shortly. So before we go to the WBBL, when you are that franchise player, now you play for the London Spirit over in the 100, over in the WPL in India as well, where you're, whether you like it or not, one of the star players, and there's pressure with that. If you are struggling a little bit, do you get down on things, and do you feel the pressure, or are you experienced enough to know that there are going to be the sort of the ebbs and flows of it all?
A little bit of all of that. It's a different pressure. Even just going over to the 100 and the WPL, sort of being that the sort of international coming in, and you're expected to perform each game. That's everyone else's expectations. So obviously, for me, I always have very high expectations in terms of performance, but you certainly do feel it from others. It is an expectation that you do well all the time.
Yeah.
So it is something to get your head around. But I think the other important part is, and in teams where internationals have come in, it's important to add something off the field as well,
Yep.
I think, and to how the group operates and sort of the positive vibes, I guess, within the group. So I think it's a really important part of an international is not only the on-field stuff where that needs to come, but you actually can have a really positive influence on the group that you go into. So for me, that's what I try and focus on as well. Obviously, I want to make as many runs as I can, but just trying to be a really good person around the group and actually adding in that way as well, I think is important, because that sometimes can get you out of your own head in terms of the performance and actually just free you up a little bit.
It's a really good point. And when Sam joins us shortly, we'll ask him about that, because he's played at multiple clubs in the BBL, big personality, comes in and can kind of, doesn't matter the group, he can make his mark quite quickly. When you've got a team that's changing all the time, it's just the reality of T20 franchise cricket. How hard is it to keep a consistent culture?
Yeah, it's difficult, and one person coming in or out of a group can actually change the dynamics quite a bit. You probably don't realise that. So each year is actually different, and every team you're in is going to operate slightly differently. So when I go over to Delhi and play in the WPL, it's very different in terms of what works with that group as opposed to, say, the Melbourne Stars, for example. So it really is about trying to pick up on what's going to suit that group at the time, what sort of personalities you've got to try and maximise that, because, every team is different, and year to year it's different. You've got turnover. So it's trying to read that as quickly as you can. It's not always an easy thing to do. And the hard thing is with franchise leagues is you get like a week lead in, if that. And your internationals are coming in literally the day or two before the tournament. So you haven't got time to sit down and always work things out. You've got to do it on the fly. And that's what is a tricky part, I guess, of franchise cricket.
So coming up with themes for a season, game plans, those sorts of things. If you're playing for Victoria, if you're playing for Australia, you've got so much leading time to sort of define what you are as a team. How do you do it when it comes to this form of the game?
Yeah, to be fair, it's probably something I've never really worked out exactly what the best method is. It is a hard thing to do is get that balance right. But that's where I think your internationals can play a really big role as well in terms of what I was speaking about before, and coming in and sort of adding to the group in their own way. It doesn't have to be the loudest person in the room. It can actually be by the way they train and the way they prepare for games and things like that. That's how you learn off of different people. Like Cappy, for example, is not very loud. You won't see her out at social events, but her preparation is incredible, and she's worked out what works for her. And so you can sort of learn off that sort of stuff as well. So I think if you get the right mix of people into your group, then hopefully there's enough good things there for everybody to follow.
Okay, and again, before Sam joins us, just an overall view from a BBL point of view. Obviously, the Hurricanes tasted success for the first time. We saw crazy things from Mitch Owen in the finals. Like he sort of lived everyone's childhood dream in what he was able to do in the final. But just even looking at some of the players that are available to be selected in this draft, some of the biggest names in Pakistan cricket, we know of Babar Azam, of course, that's going to be playing in Magenta, but there's a few other big names that are available this year. It does feel that it's going to be a massive tournament because the Australians are all available to play in the back half, including the finals. We've got a lot of the players that would invariably go across and play in the UAE. They can stay this year because the UAE has changed its timing when it comes to tournaments. It feels like this is a great chance to really consolidate, and I think the momentum, really gaining when it comes to BBL cricket.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting those big name international stars in just sort of adds to the intrigue. I remember when AB de Villiers came out and played a few years back for the Heat, and I was glued to the TV watching him. So to be able to get players like Babar Azam to come over and be involved in the tournament, I think is huge. And I think also to have players available for the back end and then finals as well is a really good thing. Obviously, in the past, players having to leave sort of just in the lead up to the finals. I think the Sixers sort of generally have a team make them to the finals, and then it completely changes because of availability. So I think that's a really good thing for not only the teams but also the fans watching.
Do you, just a general view from a local point of view, and this can be for WBBL or BBL, just the added exposure for some of the domestic players here in Australia to play in front of big crowds, big television audiences that can sort of propel them forward as potential international cricketers going forward. Is that real? Do you think even if it's T20 cricket versus 4-day, 5-day cricket?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Certainly in the women's game, I think it's that the WBBL has actually really set some of the younger players in particular up to go to the next level at international cricket. So they play under lights. They play knowing that the cameras are on them. That it's a TV game. There's interviews. There's lots of people around. They're sort of used to that. So when they get to the international stage, it's not as new as what it might be for some countries around the world. So I think that is a really important role, I guess, of the WBBL and BBL for that matter, to get people exposed to different situations and what pressure comes with that and what sort of what that entails. So I think you look at someone like Phoebe Litchfield, for example, who is looking extremely comfortable at international level, but she was already exposed to a lot of stuff at WBBL. So, I don't think it would have been such a huge jump in terms of what to expect in that regard. So I think it certainly plays a big role.
And I know from a men's perspective, we often are pushing our young Australian players or young domestic players from all over the country to go and play county cricket because it gives them great experience. It feels like it's flipped when it comes to the English players coming over here and playing BBL cricket in the summer, that we don't know too much about when they arrive, but we know a lot more about them when they leave or 2 or 3 years down the track. Harry Brook comes to mind, certainly when he started his career down at the Hurricanes, Jacob Bethel just recently for the Renegades. So the English players are getting the experience here before they arrive, much in a sort of a swapping type situation to the Australian players in county cricket.
Yeah, well, I think that's the great thing about the different leagues all around the world is you can go and experience different conditions, even going into different teams and working out how to do that, I think is important, and playing different roles as well. No two teams are the same, I guess, in terms of your role because you've got other people around you who do different things as well. So I think that just adds to your sort of, your playbook, I guess, as a cricketer in terms of what you can learn and what you bring. So I think, Aussies obviously go over to the UK and play a lot of county cricket. I know a lot of girls were over there as well playing in their system. So, they probably think they can come over and learn a thing or two over here too. So I think it works really well. And I think everybody is improving and cricket's better for it.
So all the English players, they're going to be named on Monday, the ones that are available from a drafting point of view. We can't give away too much now other than to say there's one name particularly that's surprised a lot that have nominated for the draft. So that will be announced on Monday. But talking about English cricketers, one of the stars of the BBL, he's played for his country. He's certainly one of the stars of the moment for the Sydney Thunder is Sam Billings, and he joins us all the way from the UK. Sam, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure being associated with the Big Bash. So great to have me on this morning and chat all things Big Bash.
No, we're looking forward to it. Firstly, it is very early in the morning over there when you're talking to us. What's life like for you over in the UK this time of year? We know you as a BBL player, but you're a professional cricketer that plays all around the world, all times of the year. What does your English summer look like?
Yeah, so I'm only playing T20 cricket now for Kent, Caps in Kent. We actually had a game at the Oval last night, which unfortunately went down to the last ball, where Chris Jordan hit a four to win the game against us. But it was a great game at the Oval last night, and then mixing it up with Daddy Daycare when I got home. So yeah, a bit of a combination of both. But yeah, obviously the English summer is massive. It's very similar with Australia in terms of cricket. Is front and centre in our summer, and obviously the World Test Championships going on at the moment. So the buzz around cricket all through the summer is amazing. So yeah, right in the thick of it at the moment, and yeah, loving every minute.
So I asked Meg earlier on in the program what she does when she's not playing cricket. She says her gear's still in the garage and hasn't touched it for how long, Meg? Months.
4 months, I think.
4 months.
Still going strong.
What do you like in an off-season? Do you do the same thing and try and freshen up, or are you one of these cricketers that needs to be in the indoor nets all year round?
I think, yeah, I think Meg's spot on in that you do need that time to recharge and to get away from the game. Yeah, I haven't had much of an off season. Obviously, I was in the Big Bash with you guys and went to Dubai straight after that, and then to Pakistan for the PSL. So it's been pretty full on. A couple of weeks here and there where I haven't even looked at my kit, but into the English summer now and full on. So yeah, it's kind of intermittent with a couple of breaks here and there, but not too long at all.
I know Meg's got a lot of questions for you, but since you were talking about the PSL, I wanted to ask you about the Pakistan influence that's going to be the case this year in the BBL, and the big name and the big news with Babar Azam to play for the Sixers. So you being a Thunder player, the rivalry will be very strong between obviously the Thunder and the Sixers, but to have someone of his calibre playing in the BBL, I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's been such a world-class performer for such a long time. So any competition with a player like Babar Azam in it obviously benefits not only the Sixers, as you said, but the competition as a whole. And look, I played a lot against him, and yeah, would much rather him on my side as opposed to against. But yeah, looking forward to those Sydney derbies again, and yeah, hopefully he doesn't get too many runs against us. But I've played a lot of PSL cricket. The talent that they have in terms of the talent pool is off the charts. And like you said, the Pakistan influence, if there are a few more guys coming over as well, that's only a good thing for the tournament. And he is King Baba as they call him. So really looking forward to seeing him in the Big Bash.
So Shaheen Shah Afridi, Mohammad Rizwan, Babar Azam, I mean, they are serious world-class names to add into the mix of what was a very exciting competition throughout. It just feels that it's coming at the right time when you add then the Australians to play, all the leading Australians to play, you know, that second half of the season into a final series.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's with any tournament. I'm not just talking about Big Bash, but it's any tournament you want, obviously the main players and the big players playing all through, you know, the competition. And as players, you want to play in those big games. You want to play in finals. You want to try and win trophies. So certainly that was a huge kind of deciding factor for me last year, signing a pre-signing with Thunder, and for me, knowing that clarity around where I'm going to be and play the whole tournament. Like I said, not only the team benefit, but as a player, it's way better to be at one team and stay in one competition the whole time, especially for finals. So I think that's just a huge positive for the whole competition. That a lot of the availability this year, you see it, that most of the overseas are going to be here, certainly for the latter stages and most of the group stages as well. So yeah, I think the Big Bash continues to go from strength to strength. Australia, obviously, one of the leading, if not the leading, kind of country, and the domestic tournament needs to have their Australian players playing in it as well. So that will only be a positive thing.
Sam, you spoke a little bit about then going back to the Thunder and knowing you're going back to the same team I guess you played in last year. Obviously, as an international, you want to perform well on the field, but can you chat a little bit about what you see your role as sort of off the field as well, and in terms of the culture of the team and I guess setting the standards a little bit, and what role the sort of international players with experience can play in that space?
Yeah, of course. And that's something that not only as kind of a captain in my own domestic team is something you look at in all the overseas players you bring in is, you guarantee quality. Any overseas player and any overseas signing you bring in, that they're going to, hopefully perform on the pitch, but they have a skill set to kind of benefit your side. But it's off the field where I think you can make the most impact. Certainly as a person around the group, like you said, how are you going to drive standards? How are you going to bring that competitive edge and make your teammates better around you? And that's something that obviously Trent Copeland and Davey Warner as well both kind of said to me. That was a main factor for kind of bringing me around. And look, unfortunately getting a little bit older now and a bit more experienced, but that's all I'm interested in. Is I'm trying to win tournaments and make every single player around me, every team that I play in, better. And I think having someone like Davey as well as captain last year showed, how much it meant to him and what a player, but also what a character and teammate he is. Just the impact that he made as well. So yeah, I learned a huge amount off him, and in a team that had a lot of injuries, we had a lot of chopping and changing, but to create a kind of environment that everyone could come into and perform really well. That was testament to him and the whole group. You've got to be moving in one direction.
I want you to expand on that. Is that something that you and Davey spoke about before the season started, around the role that Davey would play, the role that you would play, the role that Trent Copeland would play, the role the coach would play, to make sure that you weren't kind of stepping on each other's toes, but actually changing a bit of the culture and the attitude of the Thunder, because we saw a clear change in direction?
Yeah, I think it's kind of pretty default for all of us in terms of how we go about it, and having a bit of character, puffing your chest out, and collectively kind of being one team. As soon as you go out there, not playing as individuals and just having a real clarity about not only your own game plan, but just the whole environment as well. Yeah, you're right. Trent was very clear with that. This similar thing was at the Heat as well, when Colin Monroe and I kind of signed there. That was a similar kind of things they were saying was, culturally we need to change. We need to be more competitive and play as a team. And look, similar went from finishing wood and spoon last to them winning the tournament. And obviously last year, Thunder were wood and spoon the year before and got to the finals. So, there is so much. Everyone looks at runs and wickets, but there's so much kind of subjectivity and other stuff that goes into a winning team. And, sometimes you can't put your finger on it, but it is the most important stuff. Every team's good. Every team's got the talent, but actually how you mold together. And Meg knows better than anyone in terms of successful teams. Those things off the field and around the group, they are the most important things for me anyway. I think they can make such a big impact.
Yeah, and just on that, like, franchise cricket is very different to international cricket, where, franchise cricket, you come in like a couple of days before, you've got players coming in mid-tournament. What are a couple of things that you've found in successful franchise teams that you've played in that actually help the team to gel, like you just mentioned, and actually go out there and perform on the field?
I think consistency and role clarity. I know it's a real kind of easy thing to say, but as soon as you get to grips with, as a team, about what your best combinations are, what your best team is, I think that's the best kind of situation to be in, so that you can allow people to be consistent and have a consistent opportunity. Your best team, even if it doesn't perform well in the first game, is still your best team, and giving people the best opportunity over 4 or 5 games, and then you kind of reassess as a team. But certainly as you set up a side, I think that consistency builds trust, and it allows people to go out and play positively. If you're chopping and changing every game, then people are obviously going to go in the shell and try and play for their own position. So working that out as quickly as possible, as captain, as coach, and senior players have a huge role to play in that. And also, the characters around the group as well. It's pretty clear that you need a combination in terms of what kind of characters you have, and I think that's why Davey made such a massive difference last year to the Thunder. Even playing against the Thunder previously, it was, you knew that if you got on top, that they wouldn't kind of come back at you. Whereas obviously Davey brings a whole different edge and drags everyone else up with him. That if you're against the game or the game's going away from you, who's going to be the guy to step up and take the game on? So he was brilliant in that in terms of encouraging. And when you have a captain living it every single game, it makes it far more powerful.
We know that your name's going to be read out as a Thunder player next Thursday night, but what about Lockie Ferguson? I mean, he's someone that adds that bit of point of difference, one of the fastest bowlers in the world and has always been very good for the Thunder. Do you expect he would be back again next year? Is that something that you'd like to see?
I hope so. Obviously, we have retention rights on Lockie, and I know I might sound like a broken record, but you talk about, senior players and overseas players to benefit the group off the field. I mean, the impact, it was the first time I played with Lockie. I played a lot against him, and I thought all Kiwis were nice, and especially on the field, that they're too polite, but he's got an edge to him. He's unbelievable, and he really, is a teammate you want on your side, and especially with the bowlers, talking to all of our other kind of domestic bowlers and making them better. He was fantastic, and his skill set alone is world class. So hopefully he'll be back in green. Certainly rather him on my side than facing him anyway.
Now, Sam, there's been lots of England players who have played in the BBL and lots of players who have nominated as well, but someone who hasn't been out here before is Sam Curran. Are you able to tell us a little bit about him and what he might be able to bring to the table?
He's hilarious. He's absolutely hilarious as a guy. Very relaxed, very different to his brother Tom. They're both hugely competitive, but very different characters. He's captaining Surrey now, and I think his development as a cricketer over the last few years, it kind of has changed. He's been in so many different roles, and now he's probably starting to find his main role at batting 4 and 5 and bowling, some tough overs, but bowling and fitting in wherever the team needs. So he's a very kind of diverse and very flexible cricketer. So he's world class. I obviously have played with him at the Oval the last few years, and he's one of our main players, one of my go-to guys, 30 in the side. So I think the Big Bash can be hugely excited to have him in the draft, and I have no doubt that he'll be highly sought after. Any team that he plays in, he makes it a better team.
I was talking to Meg about this earlier, about the amount of English players that have actually come over and played in the BBL, and it's kind of kickstarted their international careers. I mean, we were saying before, Meg, Harry Brooks, the sort of the poster boy for that sort of thing, but virtually all the international stars from England have played in the Big Bash at least at some point. But for the younger ones that are coming through, Jacob Bethel's probably the most recent example. What sort of advantage are they getting by coming out and playing on the big stage, perhaps before they're getting that international exposure?
It is so important for any cricketer. I think there's always a natural synergy with English players coming over to Australia. Obviously at 21, 22, when I was only trying to break through into the Kent team, you'd go out and play club cricket in Australia. I went to Adelaide for 1 year, and then I played a few years for Penrith. So I'm a Western Sydney boy at heart. But there's always that kind of natural relationship of, English players coming over to develop and just being away from home, a long way from home. You're on your own, fending for yourself. So that starts off kind of from your early 20s with experiences like that. And, I've very rarely met an English cricketer who hasn't enjoyed their time coming over to Australia, playing cricket. The love of the game from absolutely everyone. and how people look after you in terms of for playing cricket, it really is second to none. So there's always that natural relationship. And as a player coming in and then playing in the Big Bash, every ground is packed. You're playing in front of big crowds, top names, and I think not only the level of the cricket, we know the level of the cricket is very high, but just the attention to detail and the media attention on you is a different pressure playing as an overseas player. You're a paid asset that is there to perform, and you feel like you're letting a lot of people down if you're not performing. So it is a different pressure. Is very different to any other kind of cricket that you play, and to have that in the bank of experience before you go into international cricket, I think it definitely really, really helps. And let's be honest, as an Englishman in Australia, it's tough at the best of times.
So it's just a total opposite role for you, isn't it, Meg? You're going across to play in England and be the star overseas player in their domestic competition, the pressure to perform.
Yeah, and like Sam was saying, it's a different pressure when you're going over there as the big ticket item, I guess, to go over there and perform. You're expected to perform. It's not just, we wish you all the best and hope it goes well. It's no, you've got to churn out the runs or the wickets, otherwise you haven't quite got what we paid for. So it's different. You got to get used to it, but it just adds to the challenge, I guess.
Yes, Sam, we appreciate your time. Before we let you go, I've got a couple of questions for you. I'm going to ask the same questions to Meg later, so she's not getting out without the pressure of these answers. But if you had the number one pick, you don't, unfortunately, but if you did have the number one pick that you could bring to the Thunder for the new season, who would you choose?
Lockie Ferguson.
Well, you can. Well, that's well, we're going to let him get away with that one.
Who did you pick number two then?
Who would I pick number two?
Or who would you love to play with?
Yeah, I'm putting Sam Curran up there, as you mentioned him earlier, and I'm putting Sam Curran.
Okay, fair enough. We going to accept that one? Yeah. Sam did give a good answer as to why earlier, so we'll probably let that one go. And then from an Australian point of view, who would you like to have played from an Australian point of view that you haven't already? So you can't say Davey Warner with this answer, but someone that you've noticed across the competitions, in previous years that you go, I wouldn't mind playing with him.
You know what? Tim Davis.
Okay.
Because I played a lot against him, played a bit of golf with him. He's a great lad. And I think, obviously, the performances last year, you had Mitch Owen, you had Matty Wade, you had a combination, obviously, of their team, but he's a match winner. And I think, any team that he's in, the game's not done until he's out.
Good answer. I'm happy with that. And as we let you go, just last year, just falling that agonisingly short of a title from bottom to top, how much time have you thought about it? Is that something that's sort of eating away at you to get back here again this year and atone for what happened?
Yeah, I was in Pakistan and obviously couldn't leave the hotel, and I just kept bumping into Mitch Owen in the cafe. It's as if he was following me around. But he played one of the best knocks I've ever seen. Didn't hit a ball. And look, if we're being completely honest, they were the best team all round last year, and really nicely balanced team, and deserved their victory 100%. But we're looking forward to getting back on the horse and competing and getting back into a position to hopefully challenge for that title. Obviously, a lot of injuries last year, and I think we'll only get stronger from that experience. A lot of guys, stepped up at different times. So, watch out for the Thunder.
Fantastic. Well, really appreciate you joining us. One of the stars of the Sydney Thunder and manager of Sam Curran that we've just realised in this chat. Enjoy the English summer, and we look forward to catching you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Sam Billings joining us, one of the stars, as I said, of the Sydney Thunder. His name certainly will be read out in next week's draft as one of the key players of not only the Thunder, but for the entire BBL. So that's our chat on the BBL, the WBBL. We'll do that next. Okay, welcome back to The Surge. We've done our BBL chat now, and we appreciate Sam Billings for being available very early in the morning over in the UK, but it's now time to talk about the WBBL because that comes first, and from a drafting point of view, we have also got the order post-lottery from back in April, and I talked to Meg about this before, the Stars with pick 3, but it's the Sixers that lead things off, the Strikers with the second pick, Stars, Scorchers, Hurricanes, Thunder, Renegades, the champions from last year, and then rounding things out, the Heat. So that's the order when it comes to the first round. And Meg, just going through the WBBL pre-signings, Volvart's the star, obviously, at the Strikers, Rodriguez at the Heat. We still don't know about the Hurricanes. Hayley Matthews at the Renegades, Marizanne Kapp at the Stars, Sophie Devine at the Scorchers, Amelia Kerr at the Sixers, and then we've got Adapatu also at the Thunder. Of those, is there any surprise, or that's pretty much gone to script?
Pretty much the script, yeah. Most of those players, I think, would have signed sort of a multi-year deal sort of last year, which is one of the mechanisms brought in, which I think makes a lot of sense, probably easier for people to follow. But they're all world-class players. Certainly add to the teams they're in, so it's good to see them all there.
So as we were saying earlier, when it comes to the rules, and it can be a little bit confusing, particularly for something that's relatively new, but even though it is a draft and these players have played at their clubs, in some cases for a number of years, they've still got to use those selections when it comes to a draft. So in a way, the draft for the WBBL particularly, it's kind of mining for some players that perhaps we don't know too much about, that, it's giving someone an opportunity. And I would imagine that makes it even more sophisticated and perhaps a bit more challenging for the management teams picking the players.
Yeah, I think it is. It is a little bit challenging because all those players there, you would suspect they'd go sort of in the first round or 2 rounds. So that's already sort of been determined. So then you're sort of looking at the next sort of layer of players that might be able to fit what you need as a club. So I think in the past you sort of go to the obvious players that teams want, whereas now you got to think a little bit more and maybe go outside the box a little bit in terms of who you want to recruit. To be able to come and fill up a specific role. T20 cricket these days is such a role-playing game, and it's not necessarily about the most runs. It's actually impact is actually a really important part of it. So trying to work out what players are going to be able to do that. There's a lot of research and data that goes into it these days. I don't look at any of it. I get people to tell me what the important parts are, but there's a lot that goes into it to try and find someone who can fill a role that you specifically need.
And I was thinking about this earlier today, that when it comes to the Australian pool, we're so strong that they are fundamentally the best players are the Australian players. So when it comes to drafting in international players, that role player becomes, I think, even more important.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about the competition here is that it's still the Australian players, I guess, who are the real key pillars to the teams. And actually, what I've sort of found with the past successful teams in WBBL in particular is that you still need your domestic and your local players to be able to contribute. You don't want to rely on them. That's what your international stars and Australian players are for, is to consistently do the job. But if you've got your local players and state domestic players contributing in little ways here and there to your wins, then I think that they're the teams that are successful. If you're relying on 1 or 2 people to get the job done, it's just not going to happen because T20 cricket is very fickle, and there's going to be a time when your big superstars miss out, I guess, and that's when you need people to come in and just sort of fill that role.
And that was probably the success, or one of the successes of the Renegades, was that exactly what you're talking about. They had players that were batting 8 or 9 but had specific roles to be able to perform for the team. And on the biggest day of all, the final, they needed those players.
Yeah, exactly. And, you can't rely on 1 or 2 players. You need people to come in and play a role on the specific day. And, the Renegades did that really well. You think of Nick Fulton, you think of Georgia Preshwich, I think, against us came in and hit, quite a few runs off a final over. Just little things like that make a really big difference and get you those extra couple of wins to get you into the finals, and then you never know what happens from there.
Yeah, 2 very the same 2 names that I was thinking of asking that question. So let's go through each of the teams in the WBBL and a bit of a snapshot on each of them ahead of the draft. Amelia Kerr, we know, is one of the best players in the world, let alone just in the WBBL. But with the first pick with the Sixers, do you think they'll use it on Eccleston, or do you think that they might be tempted to go somewhere else this time?
Yeah, I guess the tempting part is whether they they want an extra batter. Healy, I guess, hasn't played a lot of cricket in the last couple of years, so she could be almost a little recruit for them in a way. So whether they think they're going to get a full season out of her this time around might play a role in it as well. I mean, Eccleston I still think she's one of the best bowlers in the world. She's been very effective for a long period of time and plays well out here in Australia. So, I don't think they can go wrong, to be honest. I think if they stick with Eccleston, I think that's a good pick. But it's just whether they want the extra batting to cover off on any injuries they might have.
All right, watch this space with the first pick for the Sixers. The strikers, now Volvart's back, but Mandana's not. We know them to be very strong from a bowling point of view. What do you think that they would be looking for in the draft?
Yeah, well, I think bowling-wise, they've got themselves pretty sorted with those experienced players. I mean, Megan Schutt's been around for a long time now, knows exactly what she's doing, and they've got some good younger players as well. I think, Darcy Brown, whether she plays the full season again is another question. So they've certainly got options there, but I think most sides in the draft, to be honest, will be looking for batting. I think that's what most people will be looking for. It just depends what role that is. So whether it is an opening bat or someone who can come in sort of the middle order. You think of someone like Laura Harris, who the Thunder acquired, to play that role, to come in and to be able to hit boundaries from ball one is a very important part of the game now, and actually not a skill that a lot of people have. It's a lot harder than what you think.
Men's or women's, you're still trying to find those players.
Yeah, so it's just where that batting fits as to what role is sort of available and what people are looking for.
All right, so that's the Adelaide Strikers. Your team, the Stars, with a third pick. We talked before about Marizanne Kapp. I mean, you'd think she'll go pick 3. But outside of that, what are you looking at potentially doing?
Yeah, well, I think we've got some really good young bowlers coming through. Then we've got Reece McKenna, who wasn't able to bowl for us last year, who hopefully will be back up and running. And then sort of bowling-wise, Kim Garth and Annabelle Sutherland and Cappy. So that's a pretty good sort of setup for our bowling lineup. So, I guess it's just around the batting side of things, what we need there and what role that is. We've got some very skillful batters, but it's just about how we utilise them the best, I guess. And then once we decide on what role we want everybody to play, what's the gap, and then try and fill it from there.
Well, we've got you here. I may as well ask you the question. If you could pick any spot in the order for you to bat, where would it be? Because you've had to go at a few different spots over the time. But if you had your choice, maybe not so much for what best suits you, but where you think you're best suited for the team, might be the same position.
Yeah. I like opening the batting, and I think that's the best place. For me, I feel like I can just play normal cricket shots. I'm probably more about timing and placement as opposed to brute power. So it's about hitting the gaps, and these days if you can hit the gap in the power play, you get your boundaries. So that's the place that I guess I like to bat and feel like I can have the best impact. I sometimes start off a little bit slower than some other batters, but feel like I can cash in when I need to. I think most batters would say that, to be honest. Opening the batting in T20 cricket is the best place to bat. Generally the ball's coming on pretty nicely. So that's probably what I'd say.
All right, very good. The Perth Scorchers, we're almost halfway through our preview ahead of the draft with the WBBL. Sophie Devine, I mean, she's an icon when it comes to the WBBL, and she might be getting towards the end of her career, but she's still a fierce competitor, and she can still have a big impact on things. Yeah,
she can. Even when she's had a few low scores, you sort of feel like she's due and she's ready to rip a game apart. She's always got that feeling about her. So, she's certainly been a big contributor to the WBBL over its time, and still a very dangerous player who you need to keep an eye on.
Do they need to improve their batting, do you think?
I think they're reliant on sort of Devine and Mooney, but I think most teams would say there's a couple they're reliant on, so I don't think it's any different to any other team. But if you can get some internationals in who you feel like you can get some good consistent runs out of, then that obviously helps bring the state and domestic players along as well. So I think that's something that they'll be looking for sure.
They've also got a lot of experience, a lot of leadership. How much does that help when that leadership is quite deep when it comes to T20 cricket, where sometimes panic can set in? Just having that that calmness in a group? Because it does feel that's what the Scorchers have got, a lot of.
Yeah, I think it is crucial because you're never going to have the momentum going your way all the time, and you sort of got to be able to absorb a fair bit. And playing in teams that have probably got more younger players, inexperienced players, panic certainly sets in, and you sort of feel like it's just going to keep unraveling for you. But you've sort of just got to hold your nerve and wait for your chance to get back into the game. And the more cricket you play, the more you understand that if you just sort of stick at it and hang in there, then it does turn a little bit. So, yeah, those players sort of scattered throughout the team with different skill sets and are sort of, who are playing, their role at different times. I think that's crucial for the younger players to follow.
All right, down at Hobart, Lizelle Lee, she's not an international player anymore. She's a local, which does free them up a little bit to do a few things differently from a list point of view.
Yeah, it leaves them in a pretty nice spot. So, she had a pretty good year last year. I think she hit that 100 at the SCG.
Big games.
She can play, Lizzie. Like, she'll win you 3 or 4 games in the year. She might have a few low scores in between, but that's, again, T20 cricket.
With the bad.
Yeah, exactly. So, you sort of know that's sort of what you're going to get from her. And so she's been down there for a number of years now, and gone through the whole process of becoming a local player. So, it does free them up, though. I guess, they can add in another pretty high-profile international recruit, which I'm sure they'll be working on. They're always working on something down there at the Hurricanes, so we'll see what they come up with this year.
All right. What about the Thunder? Now, again, there's a couple of changes there that we've talked about earlier with Harris. They seem to have they seem to have a lot of firepower, the Thunder, particularly in their batting. They've retained Heather Knight last year. Do you think they'd do the same again? And then what other things might they do, do you think?
I think they like Heather Knight being there. I think she enjoys playing with them as well. So she's someone who they're always keen to get back. And sort of going off what we've spoken about before, it's the on-field stuff with her, but also the off-field stuff and what she brings, which I think is a real game changer for them. So it would not surprise me at all to see if they retain her, if she's available for the summer coming up. But, Ismail's someone who's played for them a lot as well. So that's where they've got to make the choice, which is where it becomes interesting. They've got Laura Harris, I think, who's signed, who fills a batting sort of slot in the middle. So that helps. So that means they could potentially go for more of a bowler if they think that that's what they need.
All right, so that's the Sydney Thunder. The Renegades, the champions from last year, they were really keen to get Hayley Matthews back. They've been able to do that, and having spoken recently to Simon Helmut, he's very happy because of what she offers. The 3 forms of the 3 parts of the game that she's so good at. What did you make of her season last year? Because she kind of did it as a batter at times, but also did it as a bowler at times, but not necessarily on the same day, which makes her, I think, so valuable.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of being an all-rounder. Sometimes when I'm out in the first over, I wish I bowled as well. I could contribute in some way, but that's why all-rounders are so valuable, is that they can contribute throughout the whole game. And she brings leadership as well.
Yeah.
Obviously Sophie Molyneux hasn't been playing as much as she would have liked to, but if you've got someone like Hayley to step in and who understands the system as well and the team a fair bit, because she's played a lot with them, I think that helps in terms of that transition. So she showed in the final how important she is and what she can do. So, one of the most dangerous players in world cricket.
Would they get Deandra Dotton back? It was seen as a bit of a surprise, a bit of a wild card when they got her back last year. She showed glimpses. I think she probably would have wanted a better season at times, but they go there again because I know she was so popular within the group.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, she is one of those batters who can come in and hit the boundary from ball one. Just facing her over in the WPL recently, it was just she comes out and she's only going one way, and sometimes that's what you need. So, even her bowling actually was probably more effective than what they thought. She got a lot of surge overs, I think, for them. So she brings that sort of multi-dimension to their team as well. So I think they'll retain her. That's what where I think they'll go with that. Because I think it just brings a nice balance to their team.
And they don't want to make too many changes if they can help it. They've already lost a couple across to your team. They've gone from red to green. So you'd want to think they keep as much of that winning formula together as possible.
Yeah, well, they obviously had it sort of worked out last year in terms of getting that that balance right and, getting the team operating nicely on and off the field. So, yeah, you don't need to change too many things if you're being successful, just little bits and pieces here. And I think, I'm sure that's what they'll be thinking as well.
And then finally, the Heat, Rodriguez and Pandy made such an impact last year for them. How impressed are you of those two for the Heat?
Yeah, Shika Pandy in particular. Both of those players, actually, I play with at the Delhi Capitals.
Yeah.
But Shika Pandy, who's played a lot of international cricket, hasn't played for India for a while, but very sort of underrated and can bowl at any phase of the game. She bowls big in swing as well, which not as sort of common, I guess, as some bowlers out there. So she was very handy for them last year. And Rodriguez, who's had a couple of cracks at it out here in the WBBL with the Melbourne team, she sort of had one of her best years last year. So which one they pick out of those two, I'm not too sure. I think they'll go more batting, which I think is what.
Especially having lost Harris.
Yeah. I think they'll go down the batting track, and then go from there. But I think the loss of Harris or Harris will. It's a big loss because I think as I said, the role she can play coming in and a bit unorthodox as well. It's not just. Hitting at 100 metres over cows. She's got the lap shots and the reverse lap shots. She'll sort of leave a bit of a hole in the middle order. So how they replace her will be interesting.
We've obviously gone through quite a lot of the international options because that's what the draft is essentially about. But have you got a favourite international WBBL player that you've played with, just to put you on the spot over the time that maybe you've learnt the most from or impressed you the most?
Well, I'm going to go with the combo.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the year the Stars where we made the final. It was Mignon Dupree's Nat Siva Brunt now, and Catherine Brunt. We had those three, and the mix of those three was great. They brought a lot of experience, but really showed the way for the younger players, but also had a lot of fun and enjoyed themselves too. And it was just a really good combination of personalities and skills, I guess, that they brought to the team. We got sort of the balance right that year, and it was a lot of fun.
But it shows how important this draft is. Even just you saying that, it's got me thinking. It's 3 of 11 players in the team, 3 internationals. If you get the mix right, it's not just about hitting your first pick. It is actually about the mix that it brings to your team that can make a massive impact on how your team fares.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get sort of you can look at the 3 best players in the draft, but it might not make a whole lot of sense for you to sign all 3 of those. You do need a balance. And as I said, a balance not only on the field in terms of skill set, that's a massive part, but also what they bring off the field as well, and how they fit in, I think, is important too. So it's not as simple as just picking the best 3 players that are available because, it depends also what you've got within your domestic talent as well. So all those things come into it when you're working out who you want.
If you had picked one and you could pick any player in the draft.
Do they have to have nominated or like?
Yeah, well, yes, they have to have nominated. Who would you think is the best?
Oh, best. Well, the best bowler is Sophie Eccleston. And then I like Heather Knight just in terms of what she brings. You saw with the Thunder last year how well she played. And her T20 cricket over the last few years has been sort of under the radar good, I think. She's sort of probably not one of the big names in terms of you think of with strike rate and stuff like that, but I actually think if you look at her numbers, they'd be pretty good. So, that's who I'd go with. There you go.
Look, thank you so much for being part of it. Really appreciate it to have someone that's been around for a long time now and knows the competition inside out. It's been great to have your insights. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Meg Lanning, one of the stars of Australian cricket, with us for The Surge. That completes our episode this week. We will be back next week post the draft to go through all the picks to see which clubs did a really good job and which clubs perhaps didn't do so well, but we'll worry about that next Friday. But again, ahead of the draft to get all the understanding and all the news on who is available and what each team will do, all you got to do is jump onto the app, the Big Bash app, and go to the Draft Hub for exclusive draft news, nominations, and also live coverage. The draft next Thursday, that's at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, June 19, and you can catch that on 7, on Fox, and also on KO. But until next week, enjoy your week, and isn't it good to be back talking cricket?